Survival Dispatch, in partnership with Carnival, just dropped a Christmas deal that actually makes you harder to kill. So from now until December 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, every $100 that you spend at carnival.com is one virtual raffle ticket that you automatically get entered into a drawing. And on Christmas Eve, we'll pull 5 lucky names, and the winners will get a prize package fit for Santa himself. Each one of the prizes will include 1 beef family pack, as well as 2 beef, 2 chicken, and 2 pork single-serving packs from Carnival. Where they're also going to throw in a Carnival tee and a Carnival hat, so you guys can wear that swag and brag to all of your friends that you were one of the lucky winners. But not to be outdone, Survival Dispatch has brought their A game as well, and we are offering 5 lifetime Guardian membership. You get 6 private encrypted signal channels, Survival Dispatch emergency notification system, and the POC-Link Ultra radio channel if you have those items as a part of your membership. But our current subscribers to the annual subscription are not to be left out in the cold this winter. Every time you spend over $99 at Carnival, you just email your receipt to support@survivaldispatch.com, and we will tack on 30 days to your annual membership. So don't delay and head over to Carnival and start buying that meat with no mRNA injections, no antibiotics, the perfect addition to your preps this winter. So don't delay and get started right now with Survival Dispatch and Carnival. And from each and every one of us, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
We are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Randy Nance, combat wounded Green Beret back home in Texas. And below us, our in-house 007 Jeff MD, 26 years CIA case officer. And tonight's episode is the next one in our long war series. We're going to be covering AI surveillance. However, before we get into that, we're going to cover the conflicted question of the day, and we'll go through the Command 11 sit rep, and then we'll get into the meat of it. So let me get the boys up on stage here. There we go. And this is a really simple conflicted question. So conflictedthegame.com is the website, 14 card decks set in post-apocalyptic scenarios. Most of them have questions that are related to morality, hence the word conflicted. This one's not conflicted at all in my mind. Is having a dog a good idea after the collapse of modern society? Why and what breed? All right, that's a good one. That's an easy one. I get behind that. So let's jump right in. This is a great piece of news here. So we played the video last night of this very nice lady wearing her Charlie Kirk t-shirt while she was at work at Target, and she was harassed by some mentally ill SSRI pill popping younger white girl. And here's the update. A medical center in Texas is being bombarded with profanity laced calls after one of its employees went viral for berating a Target worker over a Charlie Kirk t-shirt. Angry callers have been flooding the hospital's main lines, blasting it for hiring someone who went off on a retail employee, and people are not holding back. Is this justified accountability or overreaction that is now harming an entire medical facility? What do you think? If you think this is a justified, you think this is a righteous reaction to what that piece of crap did to this nice old lady, put a 1 in the live chat, whatever platform that you're on. What do you guys think?
I thought I saw somewhere that she got fired, which she should be. She should be. Yeah, here's reality. She thought she was going to do it, right? When it wasn't on social media, that she was going to attack this lady sitting there trying to do her job. As we know, as we can see, this lady's, if she's not in her senior year, she's getting close, right? Probably rather be at home than having to work a job like this, sitting there putting up this, doing stuff at Target. And here this lady comes along because of the shirt she's wearing. And I applaud her because of how she handled that so very well.
Exactly. She handled it well. The girl was cussing at her. Just unhinged. A lot of mentally ill people in society these days. Well, Jeff?
Totally self-inflicted wound for the idiot broad who was yelling at her. Yeah. Because who posted this on the internet? She did. She outed herself. She basically announced to the world, I'm a total bitch. And the rest of the world says, okay, we don't like bitches. And her employer says, you're making it look like everybody we hire are a bunch of bitches, and they're not, just you. So you're fired because you're making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah, I mean, this epidemic of mental illness just blows me away. I'll tell you what, I feel really sorry for young men under the age of 40. The pickings are pretty dang slim because most women under that age these days are popping SSRIs like they're candy, and they're completely unhinged. Yeah, I don't know if everybody realizes this or not. When I speak out against SSRIs, two of the top side effects of those mind-altering drugs are suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. It turns them, they're unhinged. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was going to say Trump needs to alter his policy on the illegals, and you can only let in the illegal females if they're hot, because this young generation, they need to find wives.
You're going to get
old school, old world people sometimes have better attitudes towards family. Let's put it that
I got $100 as you're getting hate mail over that. For whoever agrees with me that Jeff MD is getting hate mail from the mentally ill for making that comment, throw another one in the live chat. Tonight is the night of ones.
If I was 25 and looking for a wife, I would be hard pressed to find one.
Boy, howdy.
I'll tell you what, though, it definitely helps, right? In one respect, there might be far less, but at least you know that now. Instead of wasting your time on some of those other ones.
Yeah, you don't walk away and say, well, there's probably a better one around the corner. No, there's not.
That's right.
So before we move to the next news item here, there was a study earlier this year, and it was very large and very comprehensive. So it wasn't where they polled 1,000 people. There were literally hundreds of thousands of women who supposedly responded to this. And one of the questions asked if they took SSRIs, and 62% of the respondents said, yeah, I take SSRIs. So that means that probably 82% of them take SSRIs. And the age group in particular was 20 to 40 that copped that. So all joking aside, it's not good news for young single men. So speaking of young single men, all right, so this thing right there in the middle, that is a mentally ill woman taking testosterone who thinks that she's a man. And she's a spokesperson for the Providence Police Department. Lyle Culpepper is what this girl goes by, okay? And she wants the public to stop referring to the radical Islamic shooter at Brown University as the Brown shooter, even though he is quite literally the Brown shooter because he committed a mass shooting at Brown University. It gets worse, but Joshua makes a great comment here. Political correctness is a cancer that is destroying America, and they always seem to look like Lyle, total freaks, 35 seconds. You just can't make this stuff up.
As the Brown shooter, as this has an inherently Islamophobic connotation.
No, it's actually it's because of the university. It's not because of the
Brown, because of Brown University, not because of the color of skin. Right. We are also asking the public to please stop posting photos of Mufasa Carmax. We would, for the sake of diversity, really like to pin this on a different ethnicity.
Did you catch that? This is not AI. This is not an altered video.
Because it is unfair to keep blaming Islam for every violent act they commit. Let's do better.
Well, Islam is not an ethnicity to start with.
Good
but
point.
I get it. I get what he's trying to say. You know, we want to pin this on another ethnicity. Listen here, pal. You know, here's the problem, folks. You know, and we've touched and we pounded it in many episodes. If they're suppressing it, it's because it's the truth. No, otherwise, no one cares if it's the truth. Otherwise, you know, you don't have to challenge it because it's true. And when you start saying things like that guy can decide he's going to be a woman and might even be able to have a baby, you have zero credibility. Don't tell us, you know, that we're, you know, and again, then it goes back to the verbiage, right? Let's change the language. Let's try to change it. Everything. They want to change the narrative. They want to change the language and everything else and blame predominantly white males for all of it.
No, was that a guy who thinks he's a chick or a chick who thinks she's a guy?
That's a chick who thinks she's a guy.
Wow. Oh, wait a minute. So that's a chick that thinks she's a guy. Well, either way, she's confused.
Well, yeah, but you know, Well, this is someone who's mentally ill,
Exactly.
calling you crazy. So how serious should you take that?
But how mentally ill do you have to be to say in front of the press that you want to pin it on somebody else? The only time they suppress this information is when it's exactly who you think it is, and they just don't want to admit to it. The guy's a hardcore Muslim. He's a radicalist. He's preached against Christianity and Americans in general. Go ahead, Jeff. I mean,
well, I was just going to say it may not be a Muslim because the way this spokesperson is getting all upset, maybe it's a tranny.
no, it's a Muslim. Take my word for it. Might even be a tranny Muslim for that matter.
Well, no, a tranny Muslim would have to kill himself.
I was going to say, talk about unicorns.
To stay in touch with his religion.
Maybe that's why he's missing. But get this into you: there's over 800 security cameras on that campus, and they tried to say we don't know how, but there's no footage of the suspect. That held water for about 12 hours, and then the footage started coming out. It's the guy. It's the Mustafa guy. Big surprise. So I don't know if anything's raised anybody else's blood pressure. The last one put my blood pressure up a little bit, and my watch has gone off twice already. This one will definitely raise your blood pressure. Get ready for this, Randy. I mean, do your goose faba, to chill yourself out, because check this out. A Muslim man recorded himself yelling Allah Akbar at National Guardsmen in D.C. You aren't smiling now, are you? 23 seconds.
Allah Akbar! Allahumma salli ala Rasulullah!
So that's saying I don't see you smiling anymore.
I don't see you smiling anymore. You ain't smiling, huh? Huh? You ain't smiling shit.
Randy, you want to take a swing at that? Or Jeff?
Well, it's always never. I'm like Jeff on this one. It never happens where I'm around. You know what I mean? I don't see people acting like that. Now, again, I'm also not in big blue cities or states either. And I do very little traveling at this point. So maybe that's the case. But the reality is, I don't know we don't know. I don't know where these guys are. Obviously, they can't just say anything to him or pop him in the face when he goes by. But, it lends to the fact that they know that the system's not going to hold them accountable.
Well, I mean, let me ask both of you a question early on here. I've been watching everything that's transpired recently here, and I honestly think that these jihadis worldwide think that they have reached critical mass and that they can do whatever the hell they want. I mean, Jeff, your thoughts on that? And I'll come back to you too, Randy.
Well, they know that there's a First Amendment right. They can say that shit. But what someone needs to do is just walk up to them while they're saying that and say, yeah, I heard Muhammad was homosexual. And then watch the guy flip out. And then when he swings at you, you can swing back and then take him to the ground.
Not a bad strategy at all.
Man, that's probably the best thing I've ever heard Jeff say right there.
Yeah, but get him to initiate the violence. And then you got 4 National Guardsmen there as witnesses. And
no, seriously, that was perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. Hey, he swung on me. Words aren't violence, man. I was exercising my First Amendment right, just like he was exercising his.
Well, we're on a roll here. Let's do our third audience poll. If you think that scumbag should be subjected to 1970s and 1980s arrest tactics,
there's already some ones before you even finish.
We're throwing the ones in the live chat. So
those are just me.
If you think that 1970s and 80s policing practices should apply to that guy, put a 1 in the live chat. I'm telling you, it's the night of ones tonight, and it only gets worse. So when I say that it feels to me like the whole world is, well, the jihadis worldwide think that they've achieved some element of, critical mass, there is an endless number of articles that we could cover on SDN. I mean, we could literally be a 24/7, 365 news channel that covered nothing but the insanity of these jihadis around the world. So check this out. Bomb threat at Westminster as explosions heard. Bomb squads are on the scene at the College Green in Westminster this morning over a potential bomb. A small controlled explosion has already been carried out. And I wonder who might have planted said bomb. 45 seconds.
Some breaking news from Westminster, and that there's a security alert there. We'll bring you the latest in just a second. We think there's been a small explosion from a bomb disposal unit that has happened there. Our camera crew were asked to move away from College Green. Traffic's been stopped, and we've been told that the bomb disposal army unit has gone in there, and there's been a small explosion, perhaps a controlled explosion of that. That's the scene right now, if you're watching on your screen, in Westminster. It looks pretty quiet there in College Green, just outside. And actually earlier on, James Cartledge, who is the Shadow Defence Secretary, was chatting to him about 40 minutes ago, and we only got one answer out of him because he was moved away, not his choice. He was moved away from there by police officers. So we'll bring you the absolute latest on all of that. Some breaking news.
All right, so there's not much to comment on that one, but there's something to comment on this one. So this is the fool Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia. You know, these guys are walking, talking robots, right? The very first thing he had to say in his first address was clearly we need to take away more guns and crack down on right-wing conservatives. Bunch of ragheads did this, but we need to crack, we need to lock it down on right-wingers. And which, by the way, somewhere in all the tabs I have open, there's another news story. If you all didn't catch it, Australian police today rammed a car with 5 jihadis in it and munitions that were getting ready to attack Bondi Beach a second time. But listen to this fool. Just 32 seconds.
Overwhelmingly, one of the things about this country is what they want is when people come to Australia, you leave old divisions and hatreds at the door. At the door. When you come to Australia, you are here to support our society, of which is diverse, but that diversity is a strength.
Somebody explained to me how they even came up with this diversity of strength, because it's a crock of total shit. Either one of you guys want to take a swing at the diversity as our strength? You're on mute, Jeff, if you want to unload.
Well, it's sort of like diversity is our strength. Well, okay, diversity in a football team is your strength. You got to have 300-pound linemen, and you need 180-pound wide receivers. That's the diversity you need on a football team. Nobody gives a rat's ass what color they are, what church they go to, or anything else. It's can he block and can he catch the ball if the quarterback throws it to him? That's the only diversity you need. It's called merit.
100%. Look at the headline here. Increased penalties for hate speech. So people who say that these jihadis are pieces of shit could be subject to the same crap as the UK, where they'd be, that's hate speech. You can't say that. Yeah. You can't say factual things about the pieces of shit that did this piece of shit thing. Randy, you want to chime in on this clown? I'm not playing the rest of this video. This guy's squeaky gay voice drives me nuts.
No, but it lends exactly what I say all the time, right? There's a few of the global elites that run the globe, basically. And that's what this guy's speaking for. I don't know if he's part of them or not. Probably so. He's the head of state somewhere. But the reality is he's saying exactly what they want him to say, because they're going to use these jihadis for their action arm. You know, I doubt they ever thought or intended. They probably hoped. But as I've said before, the black community wasn't quite as violent enough during 2019 and 2020 they probably wanted. But they may have known it was going this way all along. When you look back, certainly the last 30 years, and, you know, when your news media and your law enforcement is starting to favor the jihadis, like on Europe in the streets, when they're going out and raping and beating people. But if anybody stands up to them, or God forbid, says something about them online on social media, they're going to put them in prison. That tells you all you need to know about where they're trying to drive this home at.
It sure does. So here you go. Here's the story. It could have happened again. This was about 6 hours ago. Okay, this was this morning, so a little bit before that. Tactical Operations Unit in NSW, Australia, has just arrested 5 men of Middle Eastern appearance after ramming into the vehicle, shooting beanbags in a top secret operation that has not been confirmed to be linked to the recent Bondi events. However, It's been reported that the men have been arrested, did have firearms in the vehicle. Minute and 16 seconds long. Man, this is another great opportunity for 70s and 80s policing. 1 minute, 16 seconds.
Terrifying scenes this afternoon at Liverpool, Georgie. Tactical officers wearing camouflage gear and carrying long-arm firearms have been seen pinning several men to the ground. This is all unfolded on the corner of George and Campbell Streets, right outside the busy Westfield shopping centre. Now, there are at least 5 suspects who have been searched, handcuffed, and then lined up against a fence and a wall. It appears their car had been intercepted and rammed to a stop. Beanbag rounds also believed to have been fired through the windscreen. Witnesses on the ground have claimed that the men under arrest were carrying firearms, but that has not been confirmed. We can also see in the vision one man is strapped to a stretcher. He has a bloodied head and bandages covering his face. No official word tonight from police on whether this is linked to the Bondi terror attacks. I'm told this operation has been top secret, but Georgie, we have confirmation from police that there is no ongoing threat to the public this evening.
Who wants to take this one first? Big surprise, huh?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I mean, not shocking at all. Because I'm sure in the eyes of these little terrorist scumbags, the Bondi Beach attack was a great success to them. You know, a lot of people were killed, a lot of publicity more than anything else, and a lot of fear installed. So, hey, let's just build on it. Let's do another one.
Yeah, exactly. Randy, do you want to add to it? I've got 2 more queued up on the same subject.
We can go. Really, all I was going to say is, I'm just tired of the media doing this, right? They know exactly from the start. Certainly when someone yells at Allah Akbar first, come on, let's quit. Let's just quit doing this.
Yeah, which ain't going to happen. 31 seconds. Heavily armed Australian counterterrorism police just stopped another potential Bondi terrorist plot, ramming a car filled with 5 young Islamist men off the road as they traveled to Bondi Beach. 31 seconds.
What is happening to our country? Heavily armed Australian police just apparently intercepted another plot against Bondi Beach. 5 young Islamist men were pulled out of a car in South Sydney, Liverpool. Heavily armed police operation. They actually rammed the car off the road. So the police apparently saw this as serious enough that they actually had to ram into this car before they could manage to get to Bondi. Apparently the young men were on their way from Melbourne. They had actually driven up from Melbourne to Sydney to apparently almost attack Bondi again. What is happening to our country? This is terrifying.
Does anybody want to tell him what's happening to his country?
I was just going to say, when are we going to, and everybody has seen this and we've talked about on the show. The problem is, now there's some sort of preferential treatment for the criminal, whether it was that guy yesterday, that stabbed, because it certainly, once they gave him the beat down, it sounded like they cracked his skull. He exactly hits what he deserved. If he doesn't live through that, that's his problem. These guys right here, with everything that just happened at that beach, law enforcement shouldn't have been shooting beanbags at them. I was already thinking it, but somebody already mentioned it. They should have got the Bonnie and Clyde treatment. Those should have been bullets going through there, and none of those guys should be alive right now, and they should have laid them out in the street and took a picture of them and said, this is what's going to happen if this keeps going on, because that's how you stop it. Pussyfooting around and shooting beanbags at them, give me a break.
Yeah, just a quick thank you to Ripple Effect. Thank you for the tip. We appreciate it very much. Jeff?
Well, they treat them with kid gloves, and these guys are willing to die for what they're about to do. So help them on the way. Give them what they want, man.
You got to give Jeff props for that. Come on, Randy.
I'm thinking Agent 711 is starting to rub off on 007.
Well, I'm just thinking, a lot of these places have euthanasia laws. Well, just include it, just put it in there. Say if you're terminally ill, really depressed, or a terrorist, the state will euthanize you.
I think a lot of people could get behind and support that.
Yeah, if you could get behind what Randy and Jeff just suggested, throw another one in the live chat. I'm telling you, it's the night of the ones in the live chat. So here's the third and final video on this, 25 seconds long. So we don't really gain any additional insight from that. But what worries me about that is these jihadis wearing the invisible suicide vest with a dead man switch. So if they get shot, it sets the vest off. If you get close to them, they set the vest off. I've seen some recommendations from people in law enforcement basically saying the normal protocol, if they knew someone had a vest, would be for a whole bunch of them to kind of jump on top and try and stop the guy from doing his thing. I don't think I want to be the first man in on that, but
well, I'll tell you, I don't think you have to worry about that till the real one comes. Why? Because if they're smart, and it seems like they are, just from what we already know, how their plans are laid and how well and developed this thing is, they wouldn't want that. They don't want to give away their hand yet, right? And
Sure.
If they blew one up right now, that would do that. So I bet we won't see that until the actual attack.
No, that makes a lot of sense, Randy. Jeff, do you want to add to that?
Well, I would just say I think the standard protocol should be when you have something like that is shoot them from a distance.
I like it.
Oh, and in the head. Shoot them in the head or in an incapacitation zone.
If they got a dead man switch, let them blow themselves up and minimize the casualties.
Unbelievable. So love DIY 911 said yes and stop hanging around the jihadis' vehicles or mulling around the scene. And they got censored by YouTube. So I'm going to approve that because unfreaking real. So here we go. Back stateside, as Mr. Star Spangled MAGA says here, this is my kind of cop. This is how those ragheads should have been treated in Australia. 22 seconds long.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Hold on, we got to back that up. Do you see his head snap there? Great punch. Watch this.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
Yeah, after about the fourth shot, it looked like he was unconscious and they were really holding him up at that point.
Yeah.
I should have tuned him up.
Let's watch his head snap back one more time.
Right here, this shot right here. Let play it a little bit longer. Watch. I think he goes out right here. Right there. See how his hands are stiff?
I know that's right.
Yeah, that last shot that I was telling you, right when you let it go, that shot knocked him out. He went.
Got a couple right on the button.
Yeah.
All right. Again, it's the night of the ones. If you approve of this style of policing, put a one in the live chat. I'm telling you, it's all about the ones tonight. All right. With that being said, let me get everybody up on the other stage here. And we're fixing to dive into the main topic. So keep in mind that every episode in the Long War series is set in a post 9/11 2.0 scenario. So there's 144 episodes. This is episode number 74. And as long as you have this one piece of context, it doesn't matter if you watch them in order, it doesn't matter if you watch a handful, whatever, you can watch one by itself, they will all have value for you. So essentially, this one is titled AI Driven Surveillance Machine Learning for Control, but the context is post 9/11 2.0. So what's post 9/11 2.0 mean? 9/11 2.0 is based on intelligence from Khalid Muhammad, our good friend Agent 00711 from Command 11 in Pakistan, who has infiltrated over 80 out of 120 plus known terrorist camps in Afghanistan, that tells us that their master plan, which they've been working on since somewhere around 2006, is to hit 10 to 15 American tier 2 cities simultaneously. So tier 2 being 100K to a 500K population. Each of those cities being attacked by 10 to 15 sleeper cells. Each of those sleeper cells having somewhere between 4 and 12 jihadis in each one. If you run the number, it's 2,000 to 3,000 jihadi soldiers under the Islamic Army banner, which is where all of the bad guys have come together. Taliban, TTP, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, the list goes on and on. So they start by attacking soft targets like schools, and then they sit and they wait for the first responders, and then they blow them up with VBIEDs, and it just continues on as they go from one attack point to another to another. Now, keep in mind, these 10 to 15 sleeper cells aren't attacking the same location. They're attacking 10 to 15 sites simultaneously in each city. So obviously the first responders and authorities very quickly overwhelmed in this type of situation. They will be dressed up as law enforcement. They will be dressed up as paramedics. They will have cop cars, ambulances. And for people who don't know how to identify first responders, 100% will be fooled and will be killed. The one thing I'm asking everybody to please remember, if, God forbid, you are caught anywhere near the X when this goes down, get as far away as fast as you possibly can. Do not think, I survived, I dodged a bullet. Oh, look, here comes the cavalry. No, don't trust anybody. Don't stay. Just get as far away as you can. Distance equals safety. So as these jihadis are attacking, they are being given orders from a command and control center in Afghanistan. It's the same thing that happened in Mumbai 2008 and Paris 2015, which are kind of blueprints for these CCTAs, complex coordinated terrorist attacks. So they'll be able to pivot. And those command and control teams will be monitoring social media, legacy media, and they'll be calling in orders that tells these guys, hey, don't attack X, go and attack Y, because you're going to get a bigger, death toll. They're going to be jacked up on some very custom drugs that it's come out. We got intel from Jane Doe. Klee got firsthand intel from Jane Doe, showing the reports from Chinese labs on this concoction that they've created that essentially numbs them to pain, allows them to operate without sleep, allows them to operate for the day without eating anything or getting hungry, shuts down the part of the brain where you have a conscience, those sort of things. So unless you get a kill shot, maybe the triangle of death or the heart, they're just going to keep on coming until you actually expire them. What's Klee called? BFE, battlefield execution. Until you hit BFE level, they're going to keep on coming, sort of thing. They will converge on the level 1 trauma center, which is the only one in the tier 2 city. Tier 2 cities are typically not surrounded by larger centers. So it's not like they can call for mutual aid from any agencies that have significant headcount, and they don't have any hospitals to send those people to that are at a level 1. Buffalo, New York's a great example. Closest level 1 trauma center to Buffalo would be Rochester, a couple hours down the road. Even if they were life flighted, they still only have so many choppers to carry people. When they siege these hospitals, obviously there's a huge psychological effect, just like killing children at schools. They will booby trap these buildings. We know they have sarin and other nerve gases. They'll put them in canisters in the HVAC ductwork. They'll be able to remotely set them off. They'll all be wearing invisible suicide vests, which are plastic with liquid chemicals in them, with a dead man switch. So if they get killed, it's going to go off. Lord only knows how long it will take to unsiege those hospitals. We have 4 FBI HRT teams, hostage rescue teams. None of them are trained to unsiege a building with 3,000 to 5,000 hostages. We have, some great SWAT teams across the country. None of them are trained to unsiege buildings with 3,000 to 5,000 hostages, which means Delta Team and the Rangers have to look after it. For those who aren't aware, when Delta Team shows up anywhere in the world, they have full operational control. They supersede everybody, take total control. They're a killing machine. They will have to go in and kill these guys and hopefully not get killed in the process. But again, there will be nerve gas canisters. The whole place will be booby trapped, right? And the Rangers are the support guys for Delta Team. So anybody who does make it outside, that'll be their job to contend with that. But when they start letting off things like sarin nerve gas indoors in HVAC ductwork where it's not dispersed like it is outdoors, if that touches your skin, you're dead in 3 minutes. If you breathe it in, you're dead within 3 minutes. It basically scrambles your CNS, your central nervous system. So your brain's saying, move your right hand, your left foot's moving. Well, the signal that's going from your brain to your heart, telling it to pump in your lungs, gets scrambled with something else, and your DRT. So that is the context for all 144 episodes. They're all set post 9/11 2.0. All right, so picture this. It's a crisp winter morning because the attack window is open now, although my personal belief is that we are not going to see attacks in December because as of tomorrow, schools are out for Christmas holidays. They are not going to give up the opportunity to hit schools. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't see small lone wolf attacks like New Orleans was earlier this year. That's entirely possible, but you won't see the big show, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, because they won't want to give up the school piece, which means going by Khalid's stuff, and which, by the way, if you go back to the spring and you download Khalid's predictions, look for his updated hospital assessment or threat report. Everything that he said was going to happen has happened. We had multiple, fake bomb threats, fake active shooter threats, especially on campuses around the country. Those were all probes so that the bad guys could see, where did the cops come from? What direction did they come from? Where did they make people exfil? Those were all to gather intelligence on targets. Then he said, watch what starts happening overseas in other Western countries, Europe, Australia, etc. And you'll start to see these attacks. And lo and behold, we've been seeing that happen. And then he said, we're going to see this like calm before the storm, before they hit us. And again, everything that Khalid has predicted has unfolded precisely per his predictions. So again, it's a crisp winter morning, which, by the way, slows down responses and will actually enhance the number of people killed as opposed to, decreasing it. The winter is actually in their favor. So these guys, they've been trained, many of them trained by us, for crying out loud. Many of them walked across the border during the Biden installation. Joe Kent just last week said to the Congress, he said, we have 2,000 Afghanis that we know for sure are terrorists that Joe Biden released. We have another 16,000 terrorists that were apprehended and let go by the Biden administration. So you had 18,000 known terrorists right there, trained terrorists. And then you have all these people who cross the border unseen. And somebody asked, one of the Congress critters asked Joe, well, what's that number look like? And he said, we have no idea. We literally have no idea. Now, J.J. Carroll, 24-year CBP agent, now he's working for ICE, has flat out stated it's the number that you can extract from the Mayorkas reports. They copped to another 200,000 SIA, special interest aliens. That says to me that the number is even higher than that. So 9/11 2.0 is not a one and done. The follow-on attacks, which will occur for decades afterwards, will be a regular occurrence, daily, every other day. It's going to turn us into the Middle East from that type of perspective. So now, again, picture you've got 10 to 15 cities all being attacked. You get 10 to 15 sleeper cells in each one. And this starts at approximately 09:30 Eastern. That is from the models that I've run. So for those who don't know my background, I come from the world of high-tech systems and network engineer and programmer, as well as a business development manager for a good portion of my career. And when I ran the models on what these attacks would look like from a statistical perspective, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the most likely days. kicking off at 09:30 Eastern is the most likely time. The markets are open, planes are in the air, kids are in school, people are in their offices, and there's a lot of traffic in these cities. So imagine that rolling across the country. You know, it might happen, you know, a half hour later in the central time zone, another half hour later, mountain, et cetera, et cetera. But 09:30 is typically what the models come back with as far as a kickoff. So it's not an exact science, you know, it's directionally correct is the way I would put it. So now you've got these very precise attacks, just like Mumbai, right? 10 guys come ashore in Mumbai, India in a Zodiac boat, and they've got huge duffel bags full of weapons, and they split up, and 2 of them went to a train station, and inside 2 minutes, they killed 50 people with their automatic AK-47s. And then they were given instructions to go to another place, a cafe, and they culminated by taking over the Hotel Taj. And if you watch Hotel Mumbai, the movie, it's a really accurate representation of what happened on that day. And you got 10 jihadis shut down a city of 18 million for over 60 hours and killed hundreds of people and injured even more people than that. So now we've got these attacks happening. Probably the quote, the statement that strikes me the most from 9/11 was, send everything you've got, send everybody that you've got. And when that happens and the secondary and tertiary attack goes off and starts killing our first responders, now the whole situation has just gone from bad to worse. And their goal, Al-Qaeda's goal, flat out stated, is a minimum of 50,000 casualties. This has the potential to be far higher than that, but that is their goal, 50,000 casualties, which is an order of magnitude more than what 9/11 1.0 was, 17 times as much. So now they're moving through these cities. You have a reduced police force. We already have reduced police forces. On average, law enforcement agencies are operating somewhere around 65% of what they should have for head count, some a little bit more, some a little bit less. But post 2020 cops were not subjected to the same criteria as cops hired previous to 2020 who wanted to be a cop when the defund the police and the demonization was occurring. So we end up with things like Acorn Cop that we had here in Florida. So in reality, even if we say are averaging 65%, effectively, it's probably less than 50% because of some of the people that were given jobs not based on merit, but given jobs based on reduced entrance requirements. Paramedics are being killed, firefighters are being killed, cops are being killed. Bad guys are dressed up as all 3 of them. The average person can't make a distinction between them. Jihadis are drugged up, killing everything they possibly can in sight. And in the blink of an eye, like Ryan Geho's article today that we published on Dead Drop, 3 seconds and the whole world changes. And then these guys vanish into the crowds until they show up at the next destination and start doing it all over again. And again, finally converging on those hospitals. So that's how the nightmare is supposed to play out. That's what the intelligence says. That's what Khalid's intelligence says. His intelligence, to be quite frank, is the only intelligence that I trust anymore. Some of you know I've done some deep dives into other people's work, and it's all AI generated crap. And it's easy to prove that it's AI generated crap. So consider the source. Myself, I'm not an intel expert, which is why I side with Khalid, Jeff, you know, Randy, Mike Glover. All of these guys have way more experience in these things than I do. My side of the house is the survival pieces, especially communication. So anyway, that's what it looks like. And I'm going to come to you first on this one, Jeff. I kind of want to get your thoughts on how this plays out in the first couple hours across the country. In other words, what is the reaction from the authorities and what is the reaction from the American public as little bits and pieces of information start coming out? Because a lot of Americans aren't even aware of this stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be, well, it's kind of a cross between 9/11 and COVID. You think about, okay, 9/11, was pretty obvious what happened. Airplanes flew into buildings. You saw it on TV. There's footage of it. But after that, there was a lot of panic. People had no idea the scale of the attack. Was it going to be other cities, things like that? And a lot of people just locked up and froze.
Just so you know, you're speaking of froze, your video is frozen.
Oh, okay. Give me a second here.
Don't worry about it. Go ahead and continue.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Well, okay.
It's okay. Go ahead.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, I just got to change the definition on it. And it comes
so
back.
People freeze up.
People freeze up. Other people are in denial. I remember on 9/11, there were people just tried to go on with their lives as if nothing had happened. Almost that mentality of, well, I'm not in New York, and doesn't affect me. But then you saw with COVID when there's a pandemic and people didn't believe it, and then other people started dying. I've got a whiny dog here. I apologize for that.
No problem.
But as more information started coming in and more, and more quote unquote facts started getting out, a lot of them weren't really facts. That's when people started to freak out, because the thing about COVID is it was going everywhere. And so now it wasn't just New York's problem. It was your problem. Yes, I see your dog trees.
No, this is how you calm the dogs down.
That would just make you sleep. That would make you more excited and a bigger pain in the butt. But you see, if I kick them out, they want in. If I let them in, they want out. So anyway, but people started panicking, I think, a little bit more in COVID, because then it was, okay, this is going to affect me. And I don't know what to do about it, because people felt powerless. There really wasn't a lot they could do. Turns out doing nothing was probably better than what they ended up doing. But in this case, you're going to have a lot of people, once they realize, okay, this isn't one incident. This is not just, okay, we keep picking on poor Buffalo, but okay, this isn't just Buffalo, but it's also Buffalo, and it's also Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it's also Tucson, Arizona. That's when people are going to be, okay, what's to stop it from being my town tomorrow? And I think you're going to get a lot of people who are going to retreat to their homes, which may not necessarily be a bad idea, but they're not going to be prepared to deal with that. They're going to last about a day. And then they're going to say, oh, crap, I need to go to the grocery store. I've got to get gas in my car. I've got to do something else. And they're going to be scared shitless to go outside.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Khalid has gathered intelligence in the follow-on attacks that they have every intention of going door to door, just like they did on 10/7.
And again, more panic. It's going to be like the COVID thing. One thing to read about COVID or watch it on the news, but when the guy down the street dies of it, that's when you're going, oh, crap.
Well, I'll quickly tell you that we've now had the 5th incident of somebody being on my property, taking videos and casing my place, in addition to the death threats I've been receiving. I'll send you all a screenshot of it because I took it off my security cameras earlier. But Randy, I kind of want to stay in a similar vein here with you. So somebody's in one of the cities that's being attacked. For those who don't go into condition black, don't freeze up, what do you think the most common reaction is going to be? Like, what's their gut going to tell them they need to do as far as surviving and protecting their families?
Well, I think initially it may be a shock to some folks, but I think the longer this thing plays out, that we maybe see a little differently. They can say and claim that they're going to go door to door like they did on October 7th. And they can even say that about Mumbai, but it wasn't the United States of America, where a lot of people do have guns in their home. So they're going to find a little bit different situation. And no matter how well they've constructed this plan, and Jeff knows this as well as I do, and anybody else that's actually been in service, nothing ever goes to plan. There's always going to be wrenches from the moment you start that operation. So my opinion is, I think, if it goes on 2 to 3 days, I think some of these communities are going to realize this fact, and you'll find more Americans stand up than you saw in any other country. And I think that may make the difference. And I'm in a little different opinion. It's your opinion and probably Khalid's as well. Delta Force are not the only guys that can take care of these folks. And one, they're not a big enough unit to do so. But let's just take Fallujah, for example. Did they send Delta Force in there to handle Fallujah by themselves? Who did they send? They sent the Marines. So we do, whether we sent Marines, 82nd Airborne, I guarantee you all 3 Ranger battalions that are not the platoon that's with Delta Force are some badass individuals themselves. And you turn those folks loose. I've always had a common theme that I put out. You know, if you want absolutely every heartbeat on the target extinguished, and I mean every heartbeat, you send the Marines or you send the Rangers, and they will absolutely do that for you. But I think that, you know, if the word gets out, I think that some Americans will stand up, and that will make the difference. And certainly in some of these smaller communities, because we saw no different back when we go into our old Western days, and look what happened to the James boys and their gang when they tried to rob those banks. People had enough, and they shot some of them dead right there in the street. And that's my hope of what would happen. And if you're not prepared to do that, where you can, again, if it's safer for you to leave and get far away, that's what you need to do. But at some point, people are going to have to stand up and fight to make sure that this is put down.
Well, Jeff, let me come back to you with a really quick question. What percentage of their plan do they have to execute to have the intended effect?
Not a great point, not a great part, because, you know, they're looking to, they're looking to take over the country. They can't do it with that number of people, but they're looking to instill panic, to force the government to overreact. And, you know, they want to see innocent people killed. They actually want to see the government go into Muslim neighborhoods and round people up and put them in, you know, and detain them and things like that. That's exactly what they're trying to get us to do. And be honest, a lot of times I may not even be that big of a problem with it. But, you know, Randy's right in that Americans aren't going to just, not all Americans aren't going to just stand by and say, oh, dear me, what is the police going to do? And you just look at when they had the sniper at the University of Texas back in the 60s, the people who were returning fire were locals with hunting rifles because they had better guns than the police did. And they were out there behind their pickup trucks laying fire down on that guy, which kept his head down so he couldn't kill more people. And you're going to see stuff like that. They're going to roll into a neighborhood and try to do a house to house, and then they're going to lose about 5 or 6 guys because they're going to roll up on the wrong house. And then that part of their attack is pretty much over.
Yeah, agreed. I think that they built this out to such a scale that they have some factor that they know is going to fail, like a percentage. But again, all they're trying to do is basically it's going to cost us civil liberties. And I said this after 9/11 1.0 when Patriot Act came out and stuff. They were laughing their asses off at us for all the, you know, security theater that the TSA brought to the table, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So moving into segment number 2.
Before we move on, do you see old Devin All there? He's your boy. You know how many Americans own a 338 Lapua?
This guy does. And it's a beast of a gun. I won't tell the story about how I was this close to getting a Shaytac 408 with Night Force optic and over 100 rounds that ended up selling for $5,000. It was a $20,000 rig. And it had my name on it. And I went,
what happened? Yeah, it's probably too long of a story.
It is. I'll save that for a rainy day. But segment number 2, shockwaves of fear. America demands safety at any cost. So right after the initial wave, the initial 9/11 2.0, which will be multi-days, when that fades, panic sets in. You know, you got families huddled in their homes. They're not sending kids to school. They're not going to work. They're all glued to their phones. Graphic videos are flooding social media of these assholes, you know, killing, maiming, torturing Americans in those hospitals. And that grief, it's just the process, right? The grief will turn into rage and against anybody who let this happen. And they're going to use that against us because, you know, with the streets emptied out and the terror driving people indoors, and you've got people scared to death to even go outside, and the leaders are scrambling to, you know, spin some story of unity, you know, unity amongst the parties, You know, they won't be able to hide the ugly truth of just how exposed we really were in the most permissive environment ever in the world. And then that fear will boil over. And this is where I see they're going to use it into calls for like iron fisted protection, folks, you know, trading insults online and in lines, you know, about borders and vets and why the government's been asleep at the wheel. And that will all set the stage for Patriot Act 2.0, which is some really, really scary stuff. Should scare everybody, especially when you mix AI, Palantir, CBDCs that we discussed last night into the mix. It gets really ugly really fast. So, Randy, question for you. How do you think Americans start to look at their neighbors who don't look like they're Americans?
Well, I would imagine, you know, that will heighten and grow. In fact, you know, it did after September 11th. It did after Pearl Harbor. You know, it's just one of those things. When your neighbor gives you a bloody nose, you start to look at your other neighbors differently, don't you?
Yeah. So do me a favor and just speculate on this. I'm not expecting a crystal ball or anything like that. What kind of crazy rumors do you think will start to spread, you know, after the first few, you know, frantic hours?
Oh man, you know, I wish, you know, because I will guarantee you, these folks that are planning this out probably already have some sort of package ready for social media to do that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Right off the bat, because this is one of the things that Jihadi's done, whether it was over in theater better than we did, or there will be on this time too. I think I mentioned it before on the podcast, you know, in a couple of events we had in Iraq where, you know, they came in and took pictures right after, changed up the whole scene, put women and children in there, moved all the weapons, then took pictures and plastered social media literally within minutes or within an hour after it happening. And it took the Pentagon 3 days to reply. You can imagine what sort of thing happens and what kind of, you know, there'll be, you know, I don't know. It's hard to speculate what the rumors will be, but it'll be everything from you're just being a lot Islamic phobist, or, you know, I sense that it will be something that will curb the language in the story to make people feel like if you believe this is what's happening, you're a fool, you know, or you're just a racist, or you're Islamophobist, or something to that effect, because that seems to have been a very effective in the public space for the last 15 years. They have really shaped a lot of different things just through social media and crap like that. It's amazing how much that shapes policy today.
Do you think there's a possibility of people, you know, overestimating it and saying, you know, America's under attack everywhere, the whole country's under attack?
Oh, for sure. That's going to be guaranteed. That will be, or, you know what I mean? Or that we're losing, or something to that effect.
Yeah. For some reason, I'm thinking Red Dawn, the movie.
Well, that's why that was thought out in that movie. And I guarantee you, as I said, they already have a whole full media package ready to roll out as soon as this happens.
Well, here's somebody who agrees with you too. Love DIY 9/11. I assume the deep fakes have been created and are on standby.
Oh, for sure. I
That's
guarantee you.
Yeah, it's a safe assumption. I agree with it as well. So, Jeff, why do you reckon fear pushes many people to demand tougher security measures, knowing full well that they're giving up their own civil liberties by doing so?
People have traded freedom for safety forever. And these people, they're sheep. They don't value their freedom. They just want to make sure that, you know, they have the lights come on, there's food in their refrigerator, and there's a roof over their head. They don't care about anything else. You know, and getting to what Randy was talking about, them, you know, having all this fake stuff set up. Just look at what's happened in Gaza. You know, Hamas launched a rocket that landed on their own hospital. And within minutes, the leftists around the world were blaming it on Israeli, that the Israelis purposely bombed a hospital. Nothing was further from the truth. And it took a couple of days, but they finally got the truth out that it was a Hamas rocket that fell short. And we saw it again earlier this year with the starving child. Well, the kid had some genetic disorder, And he was skinny, but his little brother was a fat little roly-poly kid. But they were saying, oh, here's this starving kid. No, it's not a starving kid. They're very good at that. The terrorists are very good at that stuff. But you've got Americans who don't understand where their freedom comes from. They think the government gives it to them, which the government doesn't give you your freedom. You already have it. Government just tries to take it away. But they're not willing to fight for anything. And when you're not willing to fight for anything, you'll end up with absolutely nothing.
Good way of saying it, for sure. So based on, past terror attacks and, whether they're terror attacks or not, even acts of war, how long before this knee-jerk panic turns into just seething anger at the government for letting this happen?
Well, they'll be mad at the government, and then the government will have to deflect and blame somebody else. And that's going to be anybody with a gun. It's going to be Christian males. They're going to, well, you stirred it up. You pissed them off. That's why they did this. And you'll find people trying to rationalize and justify this stuff. And we saw it after 9/11. There were people, we've got to do outreach to the Muslim community so they don't feel threatened. It's like, wait, break news to you guys. They just killed 3,000 people. Maybe they should feel a little threatened. So that won't take long. They're going to get mad at the government. The government's going to blame everybody except the ones who did it.
Well, let me throw this question at you, and it's not in the brief, just came off the top of my head. What do you think the probabilities of real Americans, TM Randy Nance, take it upon themselves to start killing Muslims and others who celebrate this terrorist attack?
Well, there's a chance. I was surprised it didn't happen after 9/11 because I knew some FBI agents who literally had to go to the Muslim communities in Atlanta and go to like the imams and people like that and say, tell your people not to celebrate, because if they celebrate, there's going to be big problems, because there's a bunch of good old boys with pickup trucks who are looking for an excuse. And they wisely at the time, heeded the advice. But we've seen it, what's going on in Dearborn and some of these places in Somalia or Minnesota, where they basically say, this is our town, we owe it, screw you, we've taken over. They're going to be mouthing off. But what I think you're going to see maybe happen with some of those Muslim communities, they're going to kind of circle the wagons. And people who live outside of that community, other Somalis or Muslims, may try, move back in there because they'll feel safer among their own.
Legitimate predictions on your part, Jeff. So let's move into segment number 3. The AI net drops. Tech giants rush in to save the day. So as the dust settles from the initial attacks of 9/11 2.0 and rescue teams are digging through rubble, the feds and big tech jump in with these amazing AI tools that can scan every camera feed and detect where every phone is at all times, like hawks on steroids, basically, and promising that they will spot the next bad guy before he even thinks about it. And these systems are ready to go, by the way. And Palantir is a great example. And all of a sudden, you've got this massive infringement. First and foremost, I think the Fourth Amendment gets killed, and the freedom, to move about without being, infringed upon, that goes out the window. They're already doing stuff to that, and it's only going to get worse. So now you've got, like we discussed last night, CBDCs. Even if they're not CBDCs, they know everything you spend any money on, unless you're doing cash. And they start to put together, you've talked about this before, Jeff, where they basically got all of these data points on the board, and then they unleash AI on it to predict who and what does what thing next. And that's going to be my first question for you, by the way. And I'll come right back to you, Jeff, and then you, Randy. And all of a sudden, you're living in a digital prison, for lack of a better term. You've got drones overhead all the time. You've got, everything's being monitored on your phones, your internet connection, your bank accounts are being controlled. People are being debanked, unbanked, and they're putting all of this into their AI models. Here's my question for you, Jeff. How long before we see the first arrests because an AI system flagged somebody and said, this guy is going to break the law, so we better arrest him now?
Well, we already have seen a version of it in Britain,
yes,
where you get arrested and thrown in jail for hurting people's feelings. Oh, you're saying things and you may do something bad, so we're going to put you in jail. There's the case where this illegal immigrant raped a girl. He got, I don't know what, 8 months, 9 months, and 3 guys went to prison for complaining about it, and they got like 2 years.
Yeah.
They got more time for complaining about a rape than the rapist got for doing the rape. And that is, in a way, essentially kind of like pre-crime, like in Minority Report. Well, we think you're going to do something bad, or something bad is going to happen as a result of what you say and think, not even what you do. Nothing. You should never go to jail. You should go to jail for actions, not thoughts.
Well, I mean, it's got, the ministry of truth written all over it, right? Thought crimes. How dare you? Thought crimes. So, Randy, let's say you've got a city that's locked down with all this digital stuff, AI. What are simple ways that people who live in cities, 83% of Americans live in cities, could push back against this big tech takeover of their lives?
Well, I was thinking, this would be a perfect combination or mix of, 1984 and Minority Report, right? Because I think in the book of 1984, it painted a very dark picture of what this would look like, but it didn't really have AI because there wasn't such a thing yet. Now it does. Now, Minority Report, that movie, shows a perfect example of what would happen with that. And how do you push back on that? Well, at some point, you don't allow them to do it. Somewhere we'll have to not allow them to vote this kind of thing in. And, I say the same thing. How is any normal person going to do that? You're not. That's the truth of the matter. You're not.
Well, what do you think the chances are, Randy, that when they push legislation through, they give it a title that's 180 degrees exact opposite of what the legislation actually does?
What's what they've done every time, whether it was the Patriot Act, the Inflation or whatever. Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act, when it actually did the opposite. That's what they do. And, you mentioned it a while ago. They're going to say, oh, well, it's so that we can make sure we catch on this. Well, you shouldn't have allowed them to do it the first time, because we know you allowed this to happen, or it wouldn't have happened. That's how you push back. And you get everybody in every city that does that. The problem is all the people in the cities have lost their freaking minds, and they don't think this way.
No, true story, true story. So that's the end of segment 3. As per usual, we have 5 segments, so we have 2 more segments to go through. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, especially Carnival, to start with carnival.com. They're running a Christmas promo right now. So for every $100 that you spend at carnival.com, this is a freeze-dried bag with 6 ounces of 100% American beef in it, by the way. No mRNA, no antibiotics, no crap at all. It's easier to read the label when you see one that's been eaten. But carnival.com, we do not get affiliate income from them, but you can use the code EATMEAT to get 10% off everything but subscriptions. Every $100 you spend between now and December 23rd gets you a virtual raffle ticket. December 24th, they're going to do a draw, 5 winners. You're going to get a whole bunch of Carnival product. You're going to get Carnival swag. And I'm going to give you a lifetime Survival Dispatch News Guardians membership to go with it. So carnival.com, eat meat, gets you 10% off everything but subscriptions. And for our existing annual members, Survival Dispatch Guardian members, every time you spend over $99, and this is all year long, forward that to support@survivaldispatch.com, and I will extend your annual membership by 30 days every time you send that to me. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this as we go on, but we have found the greatest jerky of all time. It's unreal. Look what they sent to me, boys. Elk jerky, buffalo jerky. I mean, on top of the stuff, they've turned me into an all-out crack addict here. Between the jerky and the carnival, I'm no better than a crack addict these days. So, and I see Randy's got his carnival hat on there, by the way, and he knows what I'm talking about. These are, I mean, who doesn't love food, right?
Well, I will say that elk is better than beef. And I've probably had some elk jerky, but usually I do something, I don't do too much jerky with it because it's so good. But I can imagine those things are probably off the chain.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. That's Wasatch Wagyu, by the way. Oh, and I have a small announcement. They upped their Christmas game today, and the discount code for WasatchWagyu.com is now SD20. You get 20% off instead of 15% off. So it's a great deal. So let's move into segment number 4, promise or prison. AI's shiny shield hides sharp edges. So on the one hand, you've got these AI systems that could sniff out plots before they happen and people are killed, and saving lives, by flagging weird patterns in the data that you need supercomputers to look for and that humans are most certainly not going to capture. A great example would be my friend Jason Wilson, the political operative. He's got a data set that himself and political candidates have spent tens of millions of dollars on. He called me a year and a half ago. He said, "Hey, Chris," he said, "I know you're a BDM guy, business development manager." He said, "How many touch points did you tell your sales teams that they need to hit to get the sale?" And I said, "Well, 80% happen between the 5th and the 12th touch, but I'm assuming you've got some updates on that." He said, "It doesn't matter if the perspective is the American voter or the American consumer. It takes 30 touch points to get them to engage on a CTA, a call to action," right? So unless you have big data sets with big CPU power to dig through them and find this sort of stuff, there's no way you're going to find empirical evidence. So AI is more than capable of doing that. However, this is kind of like flipping a coin, right? So on the one hand, you've got this thing vacuuming up data from everywhere you can possibly imagine, whether it be chats, what you're buying, what website you're going to. I mean, literally everything without a warrant. And essentially, they know everything that's going on in your life. They know everything that's going on in your neighborhood. And when you combine a few things, keep in mind, AI is written by humans, which means by default, it's going to have bugs. And all of a sudden, these flags have been tripped. And now you're being arrested for, like Jeff said, a thought crime, essentially. And, the AI that was supposed to rescue you will ultimately end up in your civil rights being basically trashed, completely trashed. So, Jeff, I mean, coming from the CIA, what are some positives that AI surveillance could result in? And what do you think it could catch and essentially stop from happening ahead of time?
Well, it's hard to stop things ahead of time. I mean, you'd have to identify people and then, get in there and arrest them. Now, you could if you could put all your suspects into an AI database, and then it starts looking at everything they've purchased, everywhere they've gone, and say, okay, this guy bought a gun, this guy got a ton of ammunition, this guy bought chemicals that can be used to make an explosive device, and more than anything, you catch one, you can do kind of a link analysis and find other people that person is associated with. Another thing it can potentially do with surveillance systems, street surveillance, is, okay, a guy commits a crime, you can kind of go back in time in the surveillance system using facial recognition and walk it backwards and find out where he's been, who he talked to, and all that kind of thing. That won't stop what he just did, but it may reveal other people that he was dealing with, and other people in his group. So it's just the ability to crunch infinitely more data than a human being could on their own.
What do you think the chances are, Jeff, as, let's say there's some examples that are made very public of AI, stopping a threat in advance? What's the prospect of them saying, hey, we should do more of that because it works? and start cranking the screws down, and therefore capture more people in their dragnet that they shouldn't be messing with.
Oh yeah, I think they're definitely the temptation is going to be there too, and also to expand it beyond terrorism. If we don't have any terrorist suspects right now, so okay, let's look at robbery. Can people say, oh, yeah, it's okay? There's, you look at because people who commit robberies tend to commit multiple robberies, and then they'll do that, and they go, well, as long as we got all this computer going, let's look at this, let's look at that, and before you know it, they're tracking people down for speeding on the freeway because, well, we calculated when you left your house and when you got to work, and the speed limit between there is this and such, and the lighting, so you must have been speeding. It's conclusive. You had to be speeding, so we're going to write you a ticket. We didn't catch you speeding, but we've concluded that you were speeding via the surveillance.
Hasn't that happened in the UK already?
I believe it has. Well, UK has cameras to keep people from driving into the city of London, because if you do, they fine you, or they ticket you, or they charge you to go in. And to their credit, what the British have been doing, a lot of people have been going around and cutting those cameras down and destroying them. And
Google Maps, if you use any of those navigation, like Google Maps or even Waze, it tells you what speed you're driving, and it doesn't matter if you're, so they already know what speed you're driving. It's just a matter of flipping that switch of what you're talking about.
Yeah, but if you don't use that, if you don't have it on your phone and you don't use your phone, and you don't have a phone with you, they can still use other methods, other means to determine it, and write you a ticket for it.
Well, I think as long as you have location services turned on in your phone, whether you're running an app or not, that they can figure it out.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can just not leave your phone at home, and then you still figure it out if
Jeffrey,
they really want to.
Refresh my memory. I think when we were just talking about people being charged in the UK, I think it was kind of like how long it took somebody to get from one point on the highway to the next point. Wasn't around towns and stuff. It's kind of like going from one travel plaza to the next, calculating the time and saying, hey, you had to speed.
Oh, I think New Jersey did that on the turnpike.
Wow. Didn't all the ones that used airplanes, isn't that how they did it?
Well, airplanes, they have marks on the road.
Yeah.
And they just time you from the time you cross this line on the road till you hit the next one. And if it's more than, 20 seconds, you're speeding, or if it's less than 20 seconds or something like that, you're speeding. But I think New Jersey, you would go through the toll booth, and it, and it registers that you went through, and it gives a time. And then you go through the next one, and it registers, and it does the math and goes, well, you were speeding. Yeah. If you were driving the speed limit, you would have done it in 27 minutes. You did it in 22 minutes. Therefore, you were speeding by X number of miles per hour.
Yeah, well said. So, Randy, for you personally, where would you personally draw the line between these systems enhancing safety and becoming an infringement on your civil liberties?
I think we're already there. Honestly, I think we're already there. But certainly any of these things that may get switched on because of what's coming, and I don't think not a one of them will be for our betterment. You know what I mean? I've been saying it for a while, and now I've coined it too since COVID, and even the Boston bombing. When your government comes out and tell you it's in the interest of public safety, you should be very, very afraid. You should be worried about that statement.
So, Randy, would you be surprised if I told you that the two biggest sources of information for current AIs, Grok, ChatGPT, etc., is Wikipedia and Reddit? Would that surprise you?
Well, I mean, the fucking, I don't know about Reddit. I'm sure it's the same. I haven't been in any courses since that happened. But Wikipedia was around the last time I took college courses, and you can't use them as a source. Even on your paper you turn into college, it is not considered a credible source. So, I mean, it's one of those things I talk about. They never do it for the right reasons, right? Or for some reason, there's always something that has to be a little screwed up with it. Because if we were doing things on the up and up, why would you use those two?
Well, that's a great question. And I would argue the reason they're using them is because they are both progressive woke cesspools of bullshit.
Oh, for sure. That's a given.
there's a handful of legitimate information, but most of it is.
But it's why they're not credible sources. That's why no one will accept them as a credible source.
Well, no one except for the people who are sound asleep. And
it's the pass around social media, because if you turn in a paper or if it's something for work, an employer, you're not going to get to use it as a credible source, period. End of story. That's not Randy saying so. That's the way it is.
Well, and I'm saying that if you go to Grok or any of these other ones and you ask it for data on something, it's going to go pull data from Wikipedia and Reddit first and foremost. You have to explicitly say, do not parse any data from Wikipedia, Reddit, or any other left-wing outlet like the Washington Post, et cetera, et cetera. And what I do a lot of times is say no legacy media, period. No Wikipedia.
That's what I'm going to do from
no
now on.
Reddit.
That's a good.
So I write these AI generators that are, when you think like a programmer, and you can basically fill in a few variables and let it go do its thing. That's one of the variables that set variables, fixed variables that I have. Basically says, I don't want to hear anything from these sites at all. Like, don't even consult them when you answer my question. And that's how you get half decent kind of answers out of it. But moving on to segment number 5, the 5th and final segment, pushback time, standing firm against the digital overlords. So I think all Americans, woke or not, all humans, woke or not, know deep down that, you know, if we're going to do this AI thing, you're essentially handing over your life, you know, to AI. And for anybody who thinks that, you know, big government, globalists, et cetera, aren't going to abuse it, boy, I got more oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you. But it's quite literally a one-way ticket to digital chains, physical chains, everything you can possibly imagine. And either we speak up about it now and try to cut it off at the pass, or it's just going to get rammed through. And I think even if we try to cut it off at the pass, there's too many people asleep at the switch, number one, and there's too many people that are sheep, right? Jeff, what's the thing that Don Mann always talks about? The sheep, the wolves, and the sheepdogs. Do you remember the context that he uses?
Yeah, he said there's well, as far as people goes, there's sheep, which are the ones that get abused and, you know, taken advantage of. There are the wolves, the ones who take advantage of them, and then there's the sheepdogs who protect the sheep from the wolves. And you think about the military or the sheepdogs, the wolves are the terrorists, and then 99% of the population are the sheep. Yeah, you don't want to be a sheep. You don't want to be a wolf. You want to be a sheepdog.
Yeah, I love how Don always uses that at just the perfect time. So at the end of the day, let's just look at where we are right now. For years now, we've had, you know, black hats, which are bad guy hackers, easily breaking into systems, stealing information, modifying information, all sorts of nefarious things. Of course, we have state-sponsored, you know, black hats now, like Volt Typhoon, which has another division called Salt Typhoon, which has another division called Silk Typhoon. Those are all CCP hacking groups that have gained access to all of our critical systems. So you've already got the ability to alter data. Now let's take it to the next step. What happens when bad guys break into systems and alter the data, knowing that the AI is going to parse it and go, Jeff MD, that guy has bought 50,000 rounds of ammo in the past 10 years. We better send somebody by to check him out, you know, and here comes RoboCop sort of thing. So at the end of the day, either we wake up now or this is going to get rammed down our throats thanks to 9/11 2.0. And I'm essentially black pilled these days. I don't have a whole lot of hope that we're going to be able to avoid this from happening. But the best thing you can do in the long run, if you can afford to do, is just get off the grid, you know, move somewhere that's remote and get off the dang grid is probably the only way that you can get away from it. But at that time, you'd also have to accept the fact to get away from this stuff, you'd have to debank yourself. In other words, take all your money, investments out. Don't let anything stay in the system per se. So back to you, Jeff, on this one here. what are the things Americans can do today without going full hermit, like I just described, but mitigate the effects of this AI intrusion against them? What can they do right now?
When you buy stuff, pay cash. Because you think if you go to the grocery store and you pay with a card, okay, that's linking your name, or you have your frequent shopper card or anything else, you're positively linking your name to everything you bought. You go to the hardware store, same thing. Anywhere you go and you pay with a card, there's a digital record of everything you bought. Now imagine the government says, somebody sets off an improvised explosive device somewhere, and the government goes, okay, we need everybody in the country who has bought these 5 items. It might be, mothballs and turpentine, whatever, and that was used to make this explosive. That could be you. Not that you were making an explosive, but you bought turpentine because you're painting your garage. You had mothballs because you got moths in your closet. But they say, okay, you made all the fixins for a bomb. So ATF is going to raid your house. And then, they're going to rip through everything you own. They're going to seize all your weapons, all your ammo, because at that point you're guilty before you're proven innocent. And what do? You're like, okay, why are you doing this? Well, the computer said, the algorithm said. And then we looked at your political statements. We looked at your posts on Facebook or online, or your texts or your tweets and on X. And man, you said some stuff that could be a little alarming to a lot of people. So guess what? We're going to go through everything in your house, and we're going to seize what we don't like.
So the interesting comment here from our good friend Father Duck: we need to rally neighborhood watch teams 24/7 on patrols. Well, one of the points I had in the brief, I don't know if you caught it or not, Jeff, was how do you build a neighborhood watch program that fights surveillance instead of feeding surveillance? I mean, could you essentially, put a gate up around your neighborhood and say nobody gets in or out, like a regular HOA checkpoint, I guess, and try to mitigate the amount of surveillance by doing that?
They don't have to get in your neighborhood to do that. You have drones.
Right.
They just fly over. Cops use drones now. They go through neighborhoods. They'll get a report from the power company and say, this house uses way too much power for a house that size with that people living in it, probably a grow house for pot. And they fly a drone around with a camera at night and look for heat signatures. And if you have them laid out that they can see through the roof and see through the walls, that, okay, that's obviously a grow house. Here's the number of beds they have. Here are the lights. Here's the system. Yeah, they don't have to step foot on your property.
Unfortunately, that's a good answer. And I kind of anticipated you would go that direction. So coming to you next here, Randy, kind of an open-ended question here, but is there anything that we can do now so that future generations don't inherit the police state thinking that, oh, well, it is what it is. We've never known anything but, so this must just be the way life is what can we do today to try and assist, the younger generations and future generations?
Well, I think, it starts with education, and parents talking to their kids. But, as you were talking about, even with the, Father Duck said it too about the neighborhood watches. Nobody wants to do that anymore. Now when something bad happens, and certainly if this sort of thing happens, there'll be all kinds of people jump on board afterwards. But going up to it, I don't know. And I'm thinking, look at this, man. As you mentioned a while ago, do we really trust them not to abuse it? Well, have they never abused one thing yet? We can't point to one single thing that the advancement that we've had that they have not abused. And then you have to realize people like Macron, or whatever the hell his name was, I think he's not the leader of France now, right? I think he had to step down or something. But regardless, he may still be. Jeff is shaking his head no. But we do know the guy was putting a big bag of Coke in his pocket, hiding it when they got caught at some kind of worldly meeting. And you think you can trust somebody doing Coke to have your best interest at heart? You're sadly mistaken. Of course, they're going to abuse it. The way we stop it is not allowing it to go through. I know I saw something in the thread and I can't go to the full context of the Mad Bomber Mike sent, really, we just need not play along. When they start doing this stuff, don't allow them to do it. Don't vote it in. If they start voting it in at the very next election, you primary that person out. And, I would say take it a step further, but I guess we really need to wait for things to happen before I would start inciting that kind of violence, because at some point it's going to come down to a fight and people are going to have to realize that. One of the things you touched on, and I haven't mentioned it in a long time, is because the problem is it's kind of what you said, the herd mentality. 85% of people just want to keep the blinders on and keep shuffling ahead forward, praying that everything works out. And, and then 15% look around, but nobody's doing anything about it. So they keep shuffling along, and it's only 5% that do or say anything about it. And right now what we're watching is those people get crushed by social media and everything else. They get put in jail. They get their livelihoods taken from them. The liberal attorneys got their guns taken away, and now they turned into Republicans. I mean, the reality is it's because we're still allowing them to do all this stuff. And until we actually stop letting them do it and playing along, including all this DEI and all this, what do you call it?
Dang, sometimers sucks, man.
Political correctness.
Yes.
The political correctness of it all, man. Until we stop doing that, it's going to continue. But we have to call a spade a spade. If something's true, then let's make it be known it's true. If it's not, let's make it be known that it's false. And the other thing is, people, turn off your TV when the media comes off. Just turn that shit off. Because if you had a relative, and we've all seen it, and everybody's had them in their families that did nothing but steal and lie from you, pretty soon nobody has them at their house anymore, and their family won't have anything to do with them. But you'll keep turning on the legacy media that keeps sticking it right in your butt every night.
Okay, so work with
Pardon
me.
my French.
Work with me here. Other than being a politician, a weather person, or a legacy news host, what other job can you be wrong 100% of the time and still collect a paycheck?
There isn't any. And, I told her that used to be a joke of mine, and neither one of my kids listened. But I say, if you want to have a job that you can be wrong every day of life and never get fired, certainly a meteorologist, one of them, right?
Economist.
Yeah, an economist.
And global warming scientist.
There
are jobs. They're out there. There are jobs out there.
And we made fun of some of the liberal arts degrees, right? But it's the same thing. People spend all this money for something that's not going to do them a damn bit of good.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Well, I would say at the end of the day, the specter of AI is just as bad as the specter of terrorism, of 9/11 2.0 and the follow-on stuff. None of it is good news, and all of it has major downsides. I think at this point in time, really, the only things you can do to kind of mitigate this for yourself is to reduce or eliminate your digital footprint. Don't put your shit all over the internet. Turn off location services for apps. Keep your phone in a Faraday bag if you don't want to be followed, sort of thing. Or like Jeff said, just don't take it with you. But reducing your digital footprint is probably the only thing you can do to kind of mitigate the effects of this. So with that being said, it is that time of the night. One of my favorite times of night. 3, 2, 1. All right. So it is time for the Carnival Hero of the Day. And the hero of the day is the nice elderly lady from Target that was basically verbally abused by this mental case here. And the reason I made her the hero of the day is because she handled the whole incident with grace
and a genuine smile.
Yeah.
She could not have handled it better. She's an absolute hero, in my opinion. So from Farm Girl Carrie here, I'm glad
One more thing she could have done would have made it better is if she left, said, "God bless you." That would have freaked him out.
Depending on the tone of voice, right? Because in the South, God bless you doesn't necessarily mean God bless you.
Bless your heart.
Bingo.
That means retarded.
Hey, listen, can't use that word on air. You know, that's not politically correct. Anyway, use it all you want. I saw somebody the other day ago that said, why aren't we using the word retarded? It has nothing to do with handicapped people. It has everything to do with your friend acting like an asshole. So, hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
So Farm Girl Carrie says, I'm glad this woman was fired. What she did was rude and unacceptable. If the elderly woman's employer did not object to her wearing this t-shirt, then it was none of Michelea's business. 1 minute, 9 seconds.
Michelea Ponce was fired for publicly berating an elderly woman. According to eyewitness accounts, the elderly woman was minding her own business and remained friendly throughout. Yet she unexpectedly became the target of Ponce's emotional outburst. The entire incident was aggressive, as if such...
Okay, so she wasn't arrested, by the way. So this got a community note added to it. What was played up until there legitimately happened. From here on, it didn't legitimately happen, but this woman was fired. So at the end of the day, the good guys won. Now, with that being said, this is the reader submitted story of the day, and this is from Hans, who submitted it. It's a video that's from a little while ago, but John Guandolo is his name, and I met him, and I'm trying to think how I met him, but it doesn't matter. After yet another horrific terror attack, I'm reposting this video because it explains exactly what we're dealing with. Former FBI agent John Guandolo explains Islam in 3 minutes. Clear, direct, impossible to ignore. I'm going to put the whole thing, I'm going to play the whole thing, and I'm going to put it full screen.
The entire purpose of Islam, according to all Islamic doctrine, is to ensure that there is an Islamic state throughout the entire world called a caliphate, and under that, Sharia or Islamic law is the law of the land. That's it. Islam is no more complicated than that. Islam breaks the entire world into two parts. The Dar al-Islam, where Sharia is the law of the land, and the Dar al-Harb, the house or abode of war, where there is not Sharia as the law of the land. The function of Islam is to eliminate the Dar al-Harb until the entire world is a Dar al-Islam. And the vehicle to do that is called what? Jihad, which in 100% of all published Islamic law is only defined as warfare against non-Muslims. So let's just put that on the line. And so we're here talking national security issues. We have people here that are running for the office of President of the United States, and we have to begin there. And what I would put forth is that since, and actually prior to, but since 9/11, our entire national security apparatus has been unprofessional in its approach to this war, from the 4-star generals to the office of the president, to the national security staff, to the leaders of DHS when it was created, the FBI, the CIA, and other agencies. Because we have said this has nothing to do with Islam, despite the fact that our warfighting doctrine says when you analyze an enemy, you start with who he says he is and why he's fighting. And 100% of this enemy that we're facing, from the Jihadi in Chattanooga to the 9/11 hijackers and everybody before and in between, have all said we're Muslims waging jihad in the cause of Allah in order to impose Islamic law and establish caliphate, period. So that's what it is. And if we look in Islamic law, authoritative Islamic law, the kind you get at mosque bookstores, not at Barnes and Noble, you will see that 100% of them say that jihad is warfare against non-Muslims. And it's total warfare. It's not just guns and bombs. It's psychological warfare. It is political warfare. It's subversion. It is the whole 9 yards. It's total warfare, something that our DOD has not been practicing. I would say you'd have to go back towards Reagan administration and maybe even beyond that. Complete and total war against non-Muslims.
Wow, he said a mouthful there. Randy, I'll come to you first for closing thoughts on this topic.
Well, I saw this. I've seen this also before, and I love what this guy says because I've been saying it for years. In fact, since I was a private, because as I've mentioned on the show many times, one of the things he highlights in this is how our government, the DOD, the Pentagon, doesn't matter who it is, from top to bottom, they will not say this. They will not say this, and they will not take it to the enemy as we have always done. Like, let's say the Japanese. Why did we drop a nuclear bomb? Because it cost us 10,000 men per island as we island hopped. And once we got past the last one, it was the mainland that we would have had to take. And they had hundreds of thousands of these one-man subs, just like the Bonsai bombers, that they promised they would unleash. So we had to break their culture and we had to take it to them, the fight to them. The only way you could make a country and a race, an ethnicity that was very proud and honorable, that has never surrendered. They would kill themselves instead of surrender. That's how serious it was, and they meant it. So that's why we took it to them. We attacked them the way we had to. In my opinion, this entire war, never have we addressed that issue. When they see it as a holy war, I thought what someone said in the last panel or two about taking it to them ideology, that is what we have to do, and we have not done yet. And then it also lends to the thing that I've always said all along. Whether it be September 11th or several other events that we've had, who has the power? We'll go to the closest one, the Secret Service with Donald Trump during the assassination. And now it's come out that they had the bare bones minimum people. No one was coordinated or talking, and none of it's normal for how we act when a president or a presidential candidate who's been a president before should be protected. Who has the power to turn those people down or to tone that thing? Who has the power to tell our Pentagon and everybody involved, do not address it this way? Not many people.
True story. Jeff, you want to make any parting comments on John's video?
Well, yeah, he's definitely, he gets to the point, and he's absolutely right. But they're going to blame all the white men are the middle-aged white guys are the primary problem. But I just saw something, and I think it's kind of funny. It says legal gun owners have over 200 million guns, and it says 12 trillion rounds of ammo. Doubt it's that high. And it says, seriously, people, if we were the problem, you'd know it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely true. They keep blaming us for stuff, and it's like, dude, if we were really out to if we had the same mindset as the jihadis, you'd know.
Yeah, that's a safe,
pretty obvious.
Yeah, I would say that too. And like I said last night, when they finally push us to the point, the rest of us realize that we're going to have to pick up a gun or we're going to have to fight these people, they better watch out, because when we finally decide that's our only measure we have left, there's going to be a lot of blood spilled. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't disagree at all. So let's hit the conflict of question tonight. Is having a dog a good idea after the collapse of modern society? Why and what breed? Randy, I'll let you take this one first.
I think it'll be yes, it's always a good idea to have a dog. Why? One, for protection. One, they can smell things much better than us. And dogs are very loyal. And once you've trained that dog and it knows what it's supposed to do, the only thing a dog wants to do is make its owner happy. So yes, for many reasons, like I said, it can smell other people and other, food, other types of things that you may want to use that dog for, and certainly for an early warning system. And then, plenty of different measures. As far as which, I'm going to have to go with, maybe mostly full grown or full size dogs, right, would be better, certainly in this type of environment. But then it's going to depend on which part of what your weather is like, of which one would work out better in that type of environment. As we know, certain dogs do better in a desert climate, where others do much better in like Arctic climate. So that's how you would pick which type of dog. But regardless, if it's a loyal dog, it doesn't matter what the breed is.
Fair enough. Jeff?
Oh, absolutely everything Randy said. I was going to hit on the breed depends on where you are. You don't want a short-haired dog in Alaska. They're not going to last the winter. But the thing about a dog too is they're on guard duty when you're sleeping. So especially if you're by yourself, they are your night watchman. You know, we all have seen dogs, they can sleep all day and that's fine. But Randy's also right about them being able to smell better. My dog Titus, who's, God love him, he's a great dog, but he's not the brightest bulb. But he'll start barking, and then somebody 5 minutes later will be walking their dog, and he can't see them, but he can smell them. He can just tell. I mean, he's got a nose that is incredible. They'll be 2 blocks away and he'll smell them coming. So you get a dog like that, you know, and you match that with a dog that's got some ferocity to it, who's a fighter in and of itself, you're golden.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to say, Chris, real quick, that he's right. We had a hunting dog back in the day that my dad used to have, and this dog would start pointing the direction the ducks were coming for long before you could see them coming.
Yeah,
right on. Yeah, so obviously, big yes for me. My wife and I have been rescuing pit bulls long before we even met each other. So it's going to be a pit bull because, you know, they say people buy dogs that resemble them. So, you know, compact.
Well, that could be a bulldog too, Chris. But if you pick pit bull, that's either way.
French bulldog.
I'd say compact, muscular, athletic, and bite you in the ass if you fuck them around. That's my dog right there. So actually, quick poll. I've got a video that's a little over a minute long that shows a bad guy getting into a bad situation with a dog. If you want to see it, put a 1 really quickly in the live video or in the live chat, pardon me. And if I see enough of them, I'll play it. Otherwise, we'll just carry on and close out the video. First ones are rolling in over here. I'm going to give it a second for y'all. If you want to see this video, it's not long. It's a
I love it. Jeff weighed in.
Yeah, minute and 14 seconds long. Poetic justice, by the way. So we got a bunch of ones rolling in from all these different platforms. So
let that beautiful bean footage roll.
Yep, let her roll here. Ultimate Karma. Robber meet Rottweiler. First moon landing on grass. Dog's like, oh no, stick around. We's just getting started, bro. Who put it in slow motion? 1 minute, 14 seconds. I'd like to see the
How would you be dumb enough to jump over that fence in the first place?
Dude, did you see that dog? You could see the smile on its face as he's coming down. I was like,
trying to climb a fence with 100 pounds of Rottweiler on your ass. I bet anything it's an IR camera, and the guy probably couldn't see the dog until he jumped over.
Well, I'm just thinking to myself, I would have loved to see a straight on shot of his face as he's coming down and looking like, oh shit, there's a 150-pound Roddy down there.
Oh yeah, that dog went right with him. Said, "Oh, where do you think you're going, pal? Nowhere."
That is too funny. So
that's great.
We'll be back tomorrow night, usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Cleed will be with us. Tomorrow night's episode is on the fusion between big tech and big brother, aka government. Between now and then, do me a favor, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless
America.
And enjoy Pastor Kessel's closing prayer.
Shall we go to the Lord in prayer? Precious Heavenly Father, we thank you again, Lord, that we can come before you, Lord, to know that you are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And Lord, what an honor and a privilege it is to come before our Creator, to raise our petitions to you. Lord, you tell us to humble ourselves before the mighty hand of God, that you may exalt us in due time, that we should cast all our care upon you, for you care for us. The Bible continues to say, be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion walketh about, whom he may devour. And Lord, there certainly is a time that we know the devil is looking to devour those that have their head in the sand, devour those that are looking around. But Lord, even so, I pray that you would give us guidance, give us direction. Lord, help us to number our days. Lord, to be ready for the day that you call us home. The Bible says it is appointed unto men once to die, and after this the judgment. Lord, I pray that we would all be ready to stand before the judgment seat of Christ. And even so, Lord, we just ask that you would guide, direct our hearts, our minds, as we desire to do your will and your way. Again, Lord, thank you for your goodness. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.